Welcome back to the League of Legends European Championship. I am now joined by Jankos after a victory over Excel. Now, Jankos, I want to bring it back to the draft. You did win. It was a good, pretty commanding G2 favored game in the end. But you banned Zilean as the last ban, and you left open Yasuo. Now, I know Kasing Zilean is legendary, but I was kind of left scratching my head. Run me through that one. Why did you opt to leave the Yasuo open and take away a champion like Zilean?
I think we just felt like if they do first pick Yasuo, we will just know about it. But if we ban Yasuo and they first pick something else, we were like really not sure what they would go for. So leaving Yasuo open and making them first pick it, we at least knew like what kind of draft they will pull out, you know, and we were prepared for it.
Well, and Caps did pull out the Vladimir, and it looked like it worked out pretty well for you guys. Now, in the early game, there were still a few hiccups. Of course, the tower dive did go a little bit wrong. Run me through kind of the thought process as to why you went for that bot side tower dive in the early game.
Well, the thought process was that enemy jungle was top side, but he was really not top side, and that enemy Braum was base, but he was really not base either. And we thought we can one-shot, but there was also a minion wave coming at the same time as Galio flash W'd. So I think we just oinked a little bit, you know, we didn't really have to go for it. It felt kind of like we have to commit to it, but we didn't really have to commit to it, you know. We could have just backed off and made Ezreal lose a few creeps. And then there's like a my hiccup where we lost the Drake, and then, well, it blows. But it's fine. I mean, we still won the game.
At the end of the day, you did still win. I do want, as kind of a final roundup thought here, how did you feel about the team's performance this week? Do you feel like you guys are still improving week to week despite holding sole possession of first place?
I feel like right now we are improving way more than we were at the beginning, because I felt like when the season started, the teams were really not good, and I feel like right now teams are improving, and that makes us better as well. Because if, you know, we started the season and no one could really challenge us, or at least beat us, and right now teams are actually getting better, especially Origin. I feel like they are a really strong team. I feel like we can actually improve as well, you know. So we are trying to get better game by game, week by week, and hopefully by playoffs we will still be the best team.
Of course, best of fives are a big question, but for now you guys do remain uncontested at the top of the table. That's going to be it from us. Back to Shocks at the desk.
Thank you very much, Dracos. I'm very happy to hear from Jankos, who is smacking that table like it's the enemy nexus. I feel you, buddy. I'm very happy to hear from Jankos that he's saying, yeah, we need to be vigilant, that we are improving, that we are practicing effectively so that playoffs come, we are still the stronger team. So what he's saying, at least, is that they're not just coasting and doing everything they want. They have a plan.
I mean, I fully agree with him. I fully agree that at the start of the split, they were uncontested, not even on a scrimmage or practice. I guess they were so strong, and other teams not practicing that much, that they had no rival, and they could not learn anything from every single screen or practice. Right now, the teams are getting better and better, so probably they are dropping these maps, they are dropping on a scrims and training, and they are learning a bit from that. I still don't believe they are quite learning a lot compared with other teams, because I believe other teams are evolving a lot, while they're still with the same playstyle and same style.
Yeah, it's always that same conundrum when you are a top team. We've heard many teams talk about that in the past. It's really hard to improve when you are the best and you don't feel like you can learn too much from the games you're playing. So that'll be something they need to struggle with and something they need to overcome in the race for playoffs. We also have our Kia player of the game, Caps, with 55% of the votes. Not for Jankos, it went to Caps, who now shares the first place in the player of the game votes with Selfmade, who will be playing next.
Yeah, I mean, Selfmade's winning all those votes. Of course, Caps just came off of a very impressive performance and sort of getting into this match against Selfmade. It's interesting to me because Selfmade just wins every single player of the game when his team wins, but G2 are still winning every game, and Caps is only just now tying him.
Yeah, it's true. Jankos is in the running there. Caps is in the running. Perk sometimes wins it as well, so it's very, not that much. All right, well, as you said, Selfmade is up on the slate next because our next matchup has a huge impact on the race for playoffs. It is SK Gaming and Schalke 04. Both lost yesterday, both looking to bounce back, and we need to take a closer look at these standings more specifically because Schalke, who was quite on a high, I think, in the first couple of weeks, even had a little winning streak, has dropped the ball in recent games. SK Gaming came off a 2-0 last week, but also wasn't able to continue that into this week. And I think when you look at who is vying for those playoff spots, this is a very important game for SK Gaming.
Yeah, exactly, because you have Fnatic and Misfits sort of biting on the heels of SK as they're trying to pull themselves not just into 6th place, but even further in the standings. That was the conversation coming into the week after yesterday's game. Now it's much more about them just staying alive in this playoffs conversation.
Yeah, you had a lot of hope for SK yesterday. Didn't really do that well. The same for Schalke. What's your view on yesterday's performance for both these two teams?
I mean, Schalke yesterday, I will always gonna say that they should have won the game versus G2. They did some good plays, but then they struggle into playing their own playstyle, and they just force themselves into an active and proactive game with a lot of action, a lot of team fights and everything that G2 will sign on that instead of Schalke. And from SK, I would believe the draft hurt them a lot. I think the draft wasn't the best, and I think if today they can pull a better draft and they have a better game plan from the start, they can pull the win into Schalke.
Yeah, I think for both teams, we need to see a better performance, clearly, because they lost yesterday, but I do want to hone in on Schalke because something that stood out to me was Abadage's performance in the mid lane. He had one of his worst games, I think, yet, and that needs to be cleaned up going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last few performances from Abadage, right, he is just dying a ton. And this player right now sits with the most deaths at 15 minutes out of any player in the league. And for mid lane, he doubles the next closest other player. So he really needs to shore up his play. Otherwise, Schalke are going to continue to fall down further.
I mean, I agree that Abadage is doing a lot of mistakes, especially recently, but I think also the team are not backing up as good as before, because in this game, actually, Ignar didn't play as good as we used to see him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Abadage has kind of been doing this the whole split. He's had highlight reel moments, but he's also died a ton. But the whole team of Schalke doesn't seem to be as much on it. And now they're up versus Schalke.
SK.
Also, they also need to beat themselves. And SK in a very important matchup. And yeah, we need to talk about self-made, because when I look at Schalke and I look at, an upset and Abadage to step up, I'm looking at self-made on the side of SK Gaming. This guy is almost the one-man team, and I need to see more from the rest of the team if we're going to be talking about playoffs, or is that unfair?
Well, I think it is slightly fair, but when you see these players besides self-made, who's actually else is on this roster, it's a lot of people that want to go even in lane. It's not, superstars that are going to be dominating their 1v1 matchups. It's people that want to play sort of tempered League of Legends, and self-made is the difference maker. He's the spark to get one of those lanes rolling to then get an advantage to win a game.
Well, when we talk about predictions for this game, I want to talk about a specific matchup of the rookies, a check-in, because we have to remember that both Abadage, coming from the TCL, and Selfmade, of course, coming from the Superliga, they are rookies this year. How much are they going to have an influence on this matchup?
I think it's really different, because as he said, Selfmade is the spark of the team. Selfmade is the one doing everything for the team, while we have Abadage, who is not going to say the opposite, but kind of is the weak point right now we have on Schalke. So as long as Selfmade keep doing the same he's been doing the last weeks, I think on the rookie spotlight here, we have a clear favorite.
So the question is, are you betting on Abadage, but not necessarily him, but the team to carry it around it, or are you betting on a one-man to carry the team?
I'm betting on the one man to carry the team. Look, Selfmade is going to come mid lane so many times and just smash Abadage. I don't know what he's doing, but in game it looks good.
All right, I think it's going to be enough. So you bet for SK?
Yeah.
I bet for SK as well.
And you, yeah, I know you're a big fan, but I personally have put the prediction on Schalke 04. I want to say what you said about Werlip needing to step up. I just think Odoamne is going to have a much better time today in that lane. I think the fact that Abadage has been dying quite a lot, has been caught by the team before, and I think they can do that again if Memento has a better game and if Ignar also keeps it a bit more safe.
I think something really important about this game is we're talking about Selfmade, but we have to talk about Pyren as well. Pyren is having questionable matchups a lot of times, having always or a bad matchup, bad champion to play against, or something like this. Playing versus Abadage, he has to play offensive. He needs Selfmade to both of them snowball mid lane, and what Memento is signing off this split is around bot lane. They are signing just camping Upset, playing around Upset and Ignar to get the wins, while Selfmade should focus this game into the mid lane.
All right, we're looking at these rookies because a win here would be massive for both teams in the race for playoffs. Let's see who comes out on top.
Thank you very much, Shucks, and welcome back to the Caster Desk. I'm joined by Vedius for the German derby as SK Gaming take on Schalke. Now, Vedius, do you remember back to week 2?
I recall.
Do you remember Schalke beating SK in week 2?
I do recall.
Do you remember the statement I made after the game? I'll remind you, because you won't recall.
It was that Schalke is the greatest German team in the world.
I'm so proud of you. You've done a great job here. And in the derby between Schalke and SK, if SK want to keep this run, the playoff race really alive and give themselves a lot of hope, picking up a win here against Schalke would be massive.
Oh, it would.
Especially when you consider since Broken Shots come in, they're 2 wins and 1 loss, and they're looking to bounce back from that defeat yesterday to Misfits.
Yes, they certainly are. Now, the thing about SK is their drafts have been pretty interesting recently. I feel like yesterday we didn't get to see a huge amount from Selfmade. I feel like his Aatrox was kind of impactful in team fights, but early on, I didn't really get to see a lot from him. So I'm curious as to what they put more of a focus on this time round. I don't know if flex picks have really been SK's strong suit. I feel like that instead they should just, you know, we heard a lot about playing around mid lane, but I actually think that it would be better for SK to just kind of best enable Purion to get as much of a 1v1 as possible, and then actually focus your attention down towards the bot side of the map, because Upset and Ignar in a 2 versus 2 are not a lane that you can just leave to their own devices.
Absolutely not the case. And for Schalke, it's also about stepping up a little. Their opening week performances, Schalke looked a lot stronger than their most recent. Weeks 1 through 3, this is a team that went 5 wins, 1 loss. And over the last 5 games, they're 2 wins and 3 losses. So for Schalke, it's also about a little bit of a return to form. They got taken down by G2 yesterday. They lost to Vitality last week. A little bit of pressure on them. They're still sitting comfortably in this race for playoffs, up in 3rd. And it's early Lissandra pick for Period.
That surprises me. They really want to take that away from Awadage. Perhaps they think that this is his most comfortable champion and they want to try and deny it from him. The Yasuo is still up, but the fact that Lissandra's already been locked in could perhaps dissuade Schalke from prioritizing it. A Tahm Kench first pick. That is very surprising. Like, Alistar is still available. I understand. Well, I guess with Thresh and Braum banned away, they just feel that Alistar's really the only next best support left up. So they go, you know what? We'll grab ourselves the Tahm Kench and lock it. It's just very surprising.
Well,
I've very rarely seen it first pick.
This is the first TK for Ignar this split. And also on the Lissandra, it is both Purion and Abadage's most played champions. Purion, 4 games, 3 wins, 1 loss. Abadage, 5 games, 2 wins, 3 losses. That Cassiopeia, don't forget, it is a flex. We'll see whether or not Upset decides to play. He's only played 3 champions this split. Ezreal, Kai'Sa, and Sivir. Ezreal is locked away, as well as Nocturne on the side of SK Gaming. So Schalke have a chance to reply.
SK have set up really well to play around the mid lane. The moment both Lissandra and Nocturne hit 6, very easy to set up a lot of plays around the mid half of the map. Now, I'm expecting this Cassio to actually be played mid lane into the Lissandra. She has the advantage of outranging her, which means that during the laning phase, you can generate a lot of pressure. And when you pair it up with an Olaf, the 2v2 is actually very strong. It's just really important that Abadage converts that, what looks like a teleport right now, into a cleanse, so that he can remove that ultimate and then actually come out ahead in this 2 versus 2. So I think Schalke right now have kind of prepared pretty well for this 2 versus 2, but by putting an early priority on support, what it means is that their AD carry pool is going to get pinched while they themselves can pinch that support pool.
What does SK prioritize as the next ban? I mean, do they take Kai'Sa off the table and
I think you should, yeah.
put Upset onto something else that he hasn't played yet?
Definitely Kai'Sa, especially against the Ezreal as well. Not only is it one of Upset's best champions, but it's also just generally a pretty good matchup. So I think it makes the most sense. I think you take him off it.
Well, we've got 20 seconds left before we find out what SK wants to do. What I like though, Vedius, is just before the draft started, you discussed how SK could try to activate Purion, maybe try to play around him, try to enable him. And with the Nocturne and the Lissandra and a self-reliable, self-sustainable maybe, bot lane and Ezreal, they're going to be pretty comfortable with that. Sion is a pivot in that last second, so Kai'Sa is open. The question is, what would you run as a top lane that Whirler, you know, wouldn't want to run into Sion? I mean, got open and available as well, unpicked and unbanned all the way down to phase 2.
That's true. I can't believe we completely forgot about Urgot. Yeah, there's no reason for Schalke not to lock in the Urgot, especially with the Sion banned away. I think SK have kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit. They're now forced to go for something like maybe a Vladimir, a Ryze, a Kennen as a kind of answer.
0-2 on Whirlib's Kennen. Araneo has spoken a little bit on the analyst desk about how he felt Whirlib could be stepping up, and of the members of the former Mad Lions, he was one of the guys he was looking at to step up. And we've got, again, more tools to support a roaming gameplay or to put some pressure in the mid lane. Pyke secured for Dreams.
So I like Pyke, especially when you pair it up with the Ezreal. Champions that can self-peel for themselves work really well when paired up with Pyke because it allows him to play as aggressive as possible. Also, you actually have a lot of kill threat with the Ezreal Pyke, especially once you come back with a Sheen. So I quite like the bot lane here from SK. Definitely another lane that Selfmade could look to play around. And if they round things out with a Kennen, ooh, the other option is a potential Yorick. And as I just say that, they immediately pivot to it. So in the early laning phase, things might be rough for Werlib. But once he gets level 6, once he gets a couple more levels under his belt, then the matchup definitely gets a lot easier, and he definitely outscales him in a side lane later on.
All right, so Urgot into Yorick is a matchup I'm excited to see, especially as Yorick has seemed to just jump up in prominence this weekend. Obviously, a couple of bans here and there, and a last-second lock-in. It will be the Kai'Sa. That is no surprise to us on the side of Schalke Nofia. And, of course, some split-pushing power, some really good pick potential, you know, with that Nocturne, Lissandra, Pyke as well. So two different kind of flavors in many ways. But what do you see for Schalke's team composition and how they want to play this game out?
Well, I think it's a little all over the shop, if I'm being honest, Quick Shot, because I think they drafted the Cassio Olaf to have a strong 2 versus 2 against the Nocturne Lissandra. They do have the cleanse that we were talking a little bit about. And I think that in lane, Cassio can have the advantage over Lissandra. We can talk more about it, why, once we actually get into the game. But they do have that strong 2v2, and it kind of forces Memento to play around the mid lane. Down towards the bot side of the map, though, when you pair the Kai'Sa up with the Tahm Kench, it's harder to generate pressure, especially once Ezreal comes back into lane with a Sheen, and you pair that up with a Pyke. So I just feel like SK have a couple more options in how they can win this game, because they have pretty solid scaling. They can play 1-3-1 if they are able to get ahead in the early game. The Nocturne can set up a lot of really strong picks. And they have pretty solid poke and siege. Whereas for Schalke, they do have strong scaling aspects in the form of Cassio and Kai'Sa, but I feel like that they're lacking an engage, and they're going to be forced to rely on things like Baron or Dragon in order to actually start fights and force SK to come to them, when in reality, if they can just get ahead early, they don't really need to, because they can just play on sides and keep Schalke split apart.
Very, very interesting. So a lot of what you said favors SK's draft this game. SK Gaming picked blue side coming into the German Derby to see whether or not they will step up, even out the head-to-head, and be one step closer to a playoffs berth. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Schalke 04 taking on SK Gaming. Another very, very important game. This is hugely influential in that battle for 6th place. And of course, it is more important for SK to pick up a win here. Put some distance between Fnatic and Misfits, and you can see Schalke have already set themselves up a little bit of pressure. Crownshot takes a whole lot of damage and a respect flash early on. So that means a flashless Ezreal to start the lane.
So this means that SK, having spotted both, well, mainly Odoamne on the bot side, means that SK want to try and get some vision towards the enemy jungle, top side rather, so they can get a bit more information as to where Memento is starting. Right now, all they were able to do is get vision on the Raptors, but this is fine because Memento will often go red into the Raptors, which means that SK should now have a good idea of what Memento's plan is. And we'll keep an eye on what the junglers are doing in the early levels, because the fact that Crownshot has burnt his flash means that he can't afford to give a push. He needs to get to the lane as quickly as possible, which means that I don't think he can really afford to give a pull. So I don't know if that's the reason why Selfmade is starting topside, but regardless, Selfmade, I think he just wanted to guarantee that assistance, which is why he's now starting on the blue lane.
Okay, fair enough. And of course, we'll see if this impacts any sort of gank pathing as the laning phase plays out. Talking about laning phase, triple teleports on the side of SK, Werlib, Pyrion, and Crownshot. Only the 2 for Schalke, Upset and Odo, but I guess taking that cleanse into what is a fair amount of hard CC on the side of SK, especially the Lissandra matchup. Not something you really want to be dealing with. And as it stands, some pressure here for Upset and Ignite. They're pushing into Dreams and Crown Shots.
So this gives us a bit of an opportunity to talk about this bot lane matchup. You can see that the thing about Kai'Sa and Ezreal is I feel really strongly that it can be really difficult for Ezreal to get priority in lane without the assistance of his support, right? Because when he's clearing minions, the best he can do is land a Q. And while it's all well and good that he's able to Q the minion wave before his opposition, Kai'Sa has way more wave clear. And when you pair that up with a Targon's AD carry, it just means that very naturally, early on, you get the push. And immediately, Ignar is using that as an opportunity to get a bit of deep vision. But the crucial thing here is that once Dreams gets a couple more levels, excuse me, And once Crown Shot has come back with a Sheen, because he'll once he's got enough money, he should go back to base, then teleport back into lane. That's when they can actually start looking for a couple of trades, because early on, Kai'Sa's not the strongest duelist, but it's really important that you land that Q from the
Pike.
From the Pike, because
Bone Skewer.
it has a really long cooldown, 16 seconds at level 1, which means that there is a huge window where Pike can do nothing, which means that you can just look for plays like this where you can just walk up and you have nothing to be afraid of.
Oh, I love it. Love watching Tom Kenches using that Devour and the Tongue Lash, trying to get some of that CC done, especially when paired with the ability to chase on Kai'Sa. And I know you feel very strongly about the Israel matchup, and Vedius, I also know you feel very strongly about Yorick. We've been talking a lot about Yorick in the top lane, and you mentioned already in draft that at least early stages will be a bit challenging into this Urgot matchup. So when do you expect to see Whirler being able to, push back or contest, or maybe even look for kills?
So typically, having spoken to Wanda, I spoke to him this morning and asked him about this matchup in particular, and he says that at early levels, often it can be very difficult to...
So difficult for Whirler right now.
Hang on.
I could not have set you up for failure better.
Hang on. There's a reason for it, because that was just a misplay from Odoamne, right? Now, he could have died had Whirlib had his ghouls up and available, but the fact is Whirlib just burnt his flash, and Memento is lying in wait. So this could be the deathbed for Whirlib.
Dum. Dark Procession comes up. That's a flash over for Memento. Manages to keep throwing out the undertow, and it just ends up being a trade. Takes another slap in the face with a piece of meat, and Whirlib is able to escape. But yes, obviously, if Odo doesn't get caught inside the W,
that's
then
the crucial thing, right? So typically what happens, right, is in the early levels, we saw Whirlib getting pushed underneath his tower, right? And the reason for that is he doesn't have that much wave clear. He's also playing against a ranged champion, so he often loses priority. It can also be quite difficult for Yorick to actually close the gap. And one way in which he can harass is when he does have the ghouls alive. If he lands the E, then all of the ghouls can do a decent chunk of damage onto the Urgot. But on top of that, it gives you a bonus movement speed that helps you close the gap, so you can then trade with the Urgot. And it can sometimes be difficult for the Urgot because of the delay on his E, the dash, that he can get trapped inside the Yorick W. So it can go in favor of the Yorick, but it's better and better the longer the laning phase goes on. The fact that Odoamne has no flash now is definitely a good situation for Whirlib to be in.
And of course, because of the flashless situation for Odo, he places down that control ward, which Selfmade has now cleared out. And crucially as well, Vedis, you talked about the bot laners. We caught a glimpse of Upset. He's teleported back to lane, got himself the pickaxe. It has now been mirrored by Crown Shot, who is down 4 CS. He's got the Sheen, as well as another Sapphire Crystal. And I am very interested to see how both duos play out. Cassio into Lissandra is slightly less exciting right now, but obviously as they have access to their ultimates, with jungler intervention, there is a lot of kill threat on both sides.
There certainly is. Mid lane matchup is the one I'm most interested in, but we might not have time for it as Ignar gets stunned.
It's a lot of damage onto Ignar, but that grey health will help him out. Both of these supports with really frustrating HP regen mechanics.
Yes, but you can see here as well how well Crown Shot and Dreams can actually trade when they land the Bone Skewer. So the problem is, again, it's just the reality is the wave clear just isn't there for Dreams, and because he can't assist Ezreal in pushing out the minion wave, unless he has priority in the lane, like he's threatening in the bush, or he has the Bone Skewer up and is threatening Upset, there's no way for Crown Shot to really push out this wave. So Upset and Ignar will be the ones conventionally just pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's why it's really important for them that they have that vision control and the safety to do this, because if they overstep and Dreams finds a good flank, then it becomes very easy to set up for Selfmade to come in now that he's level 6.
Well, if you look at the minimap, there's not that much vision right now. Earlier, when Upset and Ignar pushed all the way to the tower, Ignar left Upset to go place some wards in the Krugs camp.
Yes.
So I want to see that happening again. His trinkets on cooldown, no wards in the inventory for now. And we catch a glimpse back in this mid lane. A lot of the champions, the likes of Nocturne, the likes of Pike, can help out with Pyrion. Bone Skewer easily slithered away from. And that means this time around, no assistance for Pyrion. I was waiting to see if he carried on.
So to talk more about why Pike Ezreal is such a good duo is that Ezreal is really good by himself because he has the E to get out of danger and he can farm from range with his Q. It basically means that Pike has the freedom to go roam around the map as well and look for opportunities like that. It's much harder for the Tahm Kench because if you leave Upset by himself, it's very easy to set up a play, especially before he hits that level 6 mark. So I really like that from the side of Dreams and looking for another opportunity, especially if you can get the cleanse out from Abadage, it would make ganking mid lane so much easier.
Well, so far, very even start to the game. Whirlib, after getting access to his ultimate, managed to catch another W, hold Odo in place, and now with a little bit more AD and access to the Maiden of the Mist, is now pushing all the way forward. Actually going to pick up a turret plate as well. Really effective, but while that pressure's going on, it opens up Dragon here for Memento.
But you can also see how pivotal that mistake was from Odo Omni earlier on when he was pushing underneath the tower at level 3. The fact that he got caught in the W of Whirlib and then just sat there and took so much damage without being able to trade back meant that he lost his flash, he still doesn't have it, and now because he doesn't have much vision control towards the top side, he knows his jungler is clearing Drake, he's forced to play defensively, so he's losing a lot of farm that just went away underneath the turret, and he's falling behind in levels and just having to play defensive. So this Yorick matchup will now only get better and better. He's now completed the Sheen, which will make him that much stronger. So Schalke kind of being forced to play towards the bot side of the map because they know how strong the Yorick is right now.
Got it. And of course now, with the fact that, you know, Whirlib was top, Selfmade went in for that invade as well. Memento comes in for that dragon. While that's happening, Abadage and Upset push all the way down to their respective towers, opponents' towers, and that allowed some deep vision to get placed. You can see a couple of wards inside the Tribush and just behind the red buff, control ward there that Selfmade may clear out in a moment or two. And Streams, in fact, will spot this out. So very good heads-up play, actually from both teams, trying to push this advantage, trying to push into the opponent's territory. And it's SK Gaming with an 800 gold advantage. There's a turret plate in the top lane that's helping them out. A little bit of Klepto stacks as well. And we're still just building up the pressure towards these first big skirmishes.
But the thing is, like, you still want to see the Olaf actually try and make plays in the early game, because the longer the game goes, the harder it is for him to have impact. And the thing about Nocturne is, it's not like, against this comp, it's really difficult. As a Nocturne aficionado, when I look at this comp, I think this is really difficult because there's a Tahm Kench to provide peel for the Cassio. And Cassio, the really obnoxious thing about her is while you can spell shield one Q, the fact that Miasma is a thing and the fact that the Q is on such a low cooldown means that if Nocturne ends up in a 1v1 against her, he doesn't usually win it unless he's really far ahead. So like the whole draft on the side of Schalke, the longer this game goes on, it's really difficult for a Nocturne to play. But at the same time, Olaf is in a similar situation, like, because there's so much kiting power on the side of SK. Like, you have all the stall from Pyrion, you have the amount of mobility from Crown Shot. Like, both these junglers are going to be less and less relevant the longer the game goes.
But what I love is then it comes down to execution. It comes down to vision,
that's for sure, decision
making, and both of these teams hotly contesting themselves spots in the playoffs. Now, Abadage will be in a little bit of pressure.
Wait.
Whoa, Memento! That's not a time to use your hourglass! That is not the time to push that button!
What the hell just happened? Memento! He was there ready to help Abadage, and now this is just going to pad out the death stat for Abadage, as he thought his jungler was there, but he used the stopwatch, he's unavailable, and that was a massive whoopsie-daisy.
Oh, no ways can you get away with that one. SK Gaming were already slowly clawing ahead.
All right, let's have a look. Let's see why he does it. So he's just sitting here. He knows that this is going to happen. He's ready. How? How do you do this? Like, what?
Feels bad, man.
What are you...
Absolutely. It is a mistake.
To ward?
It is a mistake. It is a misplay. It is a misclick. We will find out.
Terrible.
You know what?
Quick shot.
I predict a salty tweet later today. We'll find out from Memento. But that could be so crucial because Rift Herald as well as Warrior Enchant picked up now for Selfmade. And he has a working stopwatch. Odo this time doesn't get caught inside the Dark Procession. Whirlib and Selfmade considered the dive, but they didn't want to risk it into the Fear Beyond Death.
Oh, okay, so I understand what happened. He's running... hang on, wait. Okay, we're good. So, he's running Predator. So when he procs the Predator, when he upgraded his boots, the boots moved to a different slot, which is why he used the stopwatch rather than the Predator. So if he'd actually used his Predator here, he would have been fine.
Right.
But he basically pressed the wrong button because when he bought, the boots moved to a different slot.
Ladies and gentlemen, professional League of Legends players make the same mistakes that you all do at home. I'm looking them in the eyes right now. A lot of people shaking their heads, liars. Nevertheless, Schalke 04 now trying to bounce back. Memento has Predator used. He clicked the right button.
He did.
This time around, but there's no opportunity for him. And with the tower falling in the top lane, it's a 2,500 gold lead to SK Gaming. And you will hear the story a lot over the coming weeks, but take a look at the standings between SK, Schalke, the rest of the field. We'll pull it up for you in a moment. There we go. SK Gaming is tied with Misfits right now, 5 wins, 6 losses. Schalke currently 7-4. It is only a few games between each of these respective teams, and only the top 6 managed to make it to playoffs.
And top 2 is extremely important because it guarantees you top 3 now in our current LEC format. So finishing in second place, which is definitely what Schalke will want to do, given their current positioning in the standings, means that a win here means a lot. And you know, you got to think of, like, tiebreakers are a thing as well. We still have 6 more games for each team to play after today.
Yep.
And so, you know, not winning today can make your chances of avoiding tiebreakers that much higher. So right now, Schalke at a huge deficit. They're down a tower. They're down a lot of gold. A lot of it currently sits on Werlib. He's played the lane very well. And he's getting to a point where now Odoame can't really deal with him in a side lane.
Now, fortunately, if Memento or Upset and Ignar come to help Odo, in a 2-on-1, 3-on-1 scenario, there is...
they lose.
You reckon? He's that strong?
But I mean, Trinity Force, level 11 Yorick. I said it yesterday. I think that's why he's at his strongest, because you have 2 points in the ultimate, and you also have a completed Trinity Force. So you also have your, I'm pretty sure you max your Q. I'm pretty confident, which means that it has basically no cooldown, which is really scary to deal with.
So, last rights, the Q for Yorick is being maxed. While you can't see it on our overlay, if you watch on watch.lolesports.com, you can see the skill orders of all of the champions in the game, so check that out.
Oh, cool.
And right now, Werlib, can he win 1v2? He's about to get level 11. I want to see Upset jump into Ignar's belly and then use that Abyssal Voyage to chase down. And I think that can be one tool, but hopefully there'll be some towers to push onto as well. And right now, Schalke are playing from behind. Both of these teams lost yesterday. Both of these teams want to pick up some more momentum, but only one of these teams has very good vision in this bottom right-hand quadrant. This is allowing SK to push all the way to the bottom outer turrets.
Well, Pyrion right now has the ability to push in mid and then move down to the river with his jungler. Memento only just now coming back from base will be trying to assist his bot team. But again, Upset and Ignar right now are forced to play on the defensive because they realize that they don't have the support from the rest of their team. And while turret planing has gone, the risk of a dive is very high. So Schalke just playing around that. And I think right now Schalke are just relying on the scaling of Cassio and Kai'Sa. Still very relevant in the late game, and especially once they've completed like 3 items, they'll both be very strong.
Okay, Memento's waiting in the wings this time around. It's a 3-on-3, and Abadag has now started to move. The Devour will buy some time as Upset runs for his life. Selfmade's now caught in the middle of the fight as the Turbish turns back around. First kill onto Ignar. SK Gaming have gone fishing and found themselves a target. Upset re-engages with the killer instinct, but there's not enough damage. There's not enough frontline. The Bone Skewer pulls one back. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of SK Gaming, but they get access to the tower.
And Abadage couldn't get there fast enough to help his team out, meaning that SK, with the strong enough dive, immediately jump onto Upset, forcing him to get into the belly of Ignar, and at that point, Schalke are in full retreat. So SK come out on top, they secure another tower, and they extend the goal lead to 3.5k.
This is fantastic for SK Gaming. They lost the first time they played against Schalke, so this will even the head-to-head if they can progress to the Nexus. And take me through this dive. I mean, it's just really good play by SK.
Note how much poke the Upset had already taken at the start of the fight as well, and unfortunately for Ignar, he'd already used his flash earlier on, so with the amount of crowd control available on the rest of SK, they're able to find that kill, but now Schalke looking for another fight.
All right, Werlib doesn't have access to the ultimate. The Devour comes back out, but look at just how much damage is being put down between Pyrion and Werlib. That Morning Mist and some of the ghouls just really frustrating to deal with. Now the tower is under pressure. This is the 3rd potential tower kill for SK. They don't have the minions to work with, so they back away for now. And also 2-item spike for Crown Shot. Manamune and the Iceborne Gauntlet, so he's also in a very good situation.
Yep.
Moving into the 17-minute mark.
I feel like SK just have full control of the map right now. They have really strong side laners. The Sandra having already completed the Luden's Echo. I think she's working towards the Proto Belt next as well. She just has a lot of just raw AP and has plenty of wave clear. And again, remember, SK, if they get ahead early, they can just split up the map. So Schalke never really have the opportunity to team fight, which is a really good situation for them because Schalke, they want to group up. They want to try and force those 5v5s as much as possible, but SK won't let them.
And I mean, Vedius, do you think it's fair that this is getting progressively more difficult for Schalke? You talked about some of the challenges.
Progressively? It's really difficult,
Some
Trevor.
of the challenges that their draft is going to have if SK gets ahead, because SK can set up the 1-3-1, and there's not great answers or great tools for Schalke. I still think Ignar's Abyssal Voyage is one of them.
Yes.
But it has to be executed flawlessly.
I mean, right now, I think what Schalke's relying on is SK have proven that they have this tendency to group and fight more often than they try to play these slow, calm, calculated side lane plays. And so I'll be keeping my eye on how well SK set up pressure across the other sides while playing around objectives. Because in the past, they haven't been that great at it, but they have a very solid split push comp that they will need to be able to execute properly if they want to secure the win against Schalke.
Okay, SK Gaming now moving into this Baron phase of the game. But before that, Abyssal Voyage is now used. Defensive Flash and Arcane Shift. Crown Shot escapes with his life for now. Schalke throw everything in the kitchen sink at SK, and it does nothing. It manages to get a couple flashes, sure, but 1-3-1 activated. Pyrian's chipping away top tower. Whirlib is going to be chipping away the bottom tower. And SK are still in full control of the game.
Welcome to split pushing. They tried to punish mid, and if they secured those kills, maybe they converted into another objective, but instead they don't. Both flashes are burned from SK, and a lot of chip damage is done onto both these tier 2 towers. So SK, so far, playing the map very well.
And of course, I want to go back to something we said in Picks and Bans, Vedius. The win-loss for Schalke. During weeks 1 through 3, this was a team that went 5 wins, 1 loss. Now, over the last 3 weeks, between 4 and 6, they're 2 wins, 3 losses.
Yeah.
And I know you in particular were talking a little bit about how Schalke seem to have stagnated, or the way they're playing the game isn't as crisp as the opening weeks, and we're kind of seeing it again.
It's kind of frustrating to watch Schalke, because in the first few weeks, they reminded me a lot of Fnatic from last year, where they just seem to have everything, and they seem to be able to play all these different kind of comps, and they're pretty reliable. But ever since the patch change, it feels like that they have been struggling to know what to do in draft. Their options have been a little bit limited, and Memento's early game impact has kind of stagnated. And in particular this game, if they had won that 2v2 in mid, this could have been a very different game, because Pyrian isn't then as strong enough to be able to threaten on side, and for them to set up that bot lane dive would have been much harder. But those kind of misplays from Memento, it's not the first time that we've seen them this split, and unfortunately, because he hasn't been able to have an impact in the early game, I struggle to see how he'll further have an impact in the rest of the game. And again, Schalke have no engage, so it's really difficult for them to like threaten something, because there's nothing that SK really have to be afraid of when they have Pyke, Ezreal, and Lissandra, who are extremely mobile carries.
And also in terms of just complexity of executing, you know, the simplicity of some of SK's tools really makes it a little bit more reliable, especially when you've got a 6,000 gold lead. And then you've still got the safety of Pyke and Ezreal. As you can see them stepping forward, poking with those Mystic shots. So Baron game initiated. SK are pushing the vision into the top half. They have control of the mid lane. They've got that shoving forward. Whirlib is teleport available to him, so he's going to go bot. And now we get to play the Judge SK's Baron game. For the time being, it's a decent start.
Well, I don't think they need to start the Baron, but right now they're just setting up vision because it becomes easier to find picks. And fun fact, if you have push in top and you have push in mid, and the enemy tries to walk through the jungle, it means that they can get picked off and die. And then you can convert it into a Baron. But I think starting it would be really dangerous, because if they want to start it, they would have to bring Whirlib to the rest of the team, which is never really where you want him. You want him sitting on a side lane, generating pressure by just clearing those minion waves and winning out on those 1v1s.
Now, of course, we know that SK is in a pretty commanding position, so we'll have some time to discuss SK's spring split a little later. I want to look at Schalke's strength of schedule, the games they still have to play after this one. Today, they're playing SK Gaming. Next week, Fnatic Splice, then XL, Misfits, and OG. So for Schalke, not exactly the most difficult of strength of schedules when you consider Fnatic, XL, Misfits in theory.
I mean, it depends if Fnatic win today, right?
It does indeed. But that's a big question mark. And if you're a Schalke fan, and if you want, you know, Schalke to be one of the organizations that guarantees a playoff spot, they need to start picking up wins, whether it's today or some of those follow-up games. And it just gets progressively more difficult with each and every loss. Bone Skewer does find a target, but SK, as you mentioned, Vedius, they're just playing the vision game. They're playing the pressure game. They're very content with the lead they have.
It's just funny because this is exactly how Schalke used to play. If you had, if you go back to week 2 and you swap the nameplates, you'd be accurate, right? So, and it just goes to show how much growth SK has made over the course of the split. When I felt like they were stagnating and struggling as a team, we're now here in week 6, and they're doing to Schalke what Schalke did to them.
I tell you what, week 2, when I said crown shot Ezreal, what GIF or emoji would you have given me?
Oh, definitely an XD one.
And now week 6, crown shot Ezreal.
He's doing a good job.
And it's just, I think he was one of the guys that was very heavily criticized because of some pretty obvious mistakes in the early stages of the week.
That's fair.
And as you rightfully said, not only crown shot, but the entire team has rightfully so stepped up and
now
found themselves some rhythm.
The problem is, Quickshot, the game is slowing down a lot.
So this is good for Schalke.
Well, yes, because the thing about the Kai'Sa is she is behind the Ezreal right now by 1,200 gold, but she is working towards the Rage Blades. It's not that far off because she's actually sitting on a decent amount of gold, and the Cassio has actually now fully completed the Leandries, so she's at 2 items as well. So the 2 big carries, or the carry threats on the side of Schalke, are actually getting to a point where they're really strong. And SK are now at that kind of power point, and they still have scaling. They're still going to be relevant as the game goes on, but this is where SK, I feel, if they're going to force anything, need to force it now.
Give me a definitive answer. Which AD do you prefer right now? Crown Shot, considering he has 3 completed items?
Crown Shot, that's not even a discussion.
Upset, well, there you go. Simple fact. So even though Upset has got that Rage Blade activated, one misstep in a team fight into Nocturne, Yorick, Lissandra, Ezreal, is absolutely terrifying. And SK, after conceding the first 2 Cloud Drakes, will now pick up an Ocean and an Infernal. We should get 1 more Elemental Drake before the Elder. An interesting stat for you. Whoa, Period. He's caught inside the river. Does manage to take the claw, flashes over as well, takes the Blast Cone, and Period escapes with his life, but it's at the cost of his flash. I didn't see how he got stuck in the pit. That is a...
I think he's clearing a ward, mate.
No, risky business.
Really, I would say that it was not optimal positioning. His team was doing a Drake, and he decided to clear out some vision. And fun fact, when you clear out vision, you give information to the enemy team as to where you are, and he's clearing out a control ward as well, which already gives vision. So
yeah.
The thing is, if the Miasma was placed slightly more inside the pits, that would have guaranteed a kill, because he wouldn't have been able to teleport to his E then. So slight misplay there from Abadage, on top of the fact that he flashed over the wall onto a Blast Cone. Definitely very irritating.
Yeah, very irritating indeed. And I also just took a look, as you mentioned, both Abadage and Pyrian in the same breath. Abadage right now is 1-2-0, and the analysts hit on it just before the game. Abadage dies a lot. As far as mid laners go, his early game deaths pre-15 is double the mid lane average. It's some early game concessions that simply cost his team, you know, a lot of gold, a lot of control. But to be fair, when we take the entire games into consideration, Pyrian and Abadage both die a lot in the grander scheme of things over the course of the entire game. Give you some numbers. Abadage has died 25 times total over the 11 games. Pyrian 29 times.
Ooh, Trevor, the baton has begun.
And is this good or bad?
No teleport onto Omni right now. Is he going to trade it for the Ignite? Can he even do that?
Memento's got flash available if he wants to get into the pit. Crown Shot and Dreams are starting to zone away. That's going to flash inside. It's secured! It's stolen by Memento! He makes up for the stopwatch misplay by stealing Baron. But take a look at Dreams. He goes fishing and finds himself in Urgot. Urgot gets devoured by Ignar. They continue to chase away. Ignar goes low. Period uses the hourglass. Here comes Dreams! Depth from below! But the Fear Beyond Death gets a trade back. Odo gets himself a double kill. Berlin screams in elation, but Memento steals Baron.
Ends in disaster for SK as they tried to force the ban, thinking that Odo Omni couldn't get there in time, but it ends up getting stolen from them anyway. Schalke now look to defend their base.
All right, with Baron empowered minions, this will help somewhat. They're able to clear out the minions, and Schalke are in a 5,000 gold deficit. But Memento comes up with the hero play.
This is the most dangerous way to force the ban. They thought that they could generate a numbers advantage here, and they thought this would be safe to do. The problem is Schalke have so much vision here because SK have just skipped all the steps. They haven't gained control over River, they haven't set up and invaded the enemy jungle, and it just means that you get a flash over the wall, it's an Olaf who can't be CC'd, and he secures the steal. Very greedy play from SK that ends up getting punished.
Memento, your sins have been forgiven, and you have been rewarded with an Alienware big play. Baron steal, but it is at the cost of several team members, 3 at the end of the play. So Baron on Odo and Upset will be crucial in stalling this game out, and I think even more importantly, they didn't lose the inhibitor turret in the mid lane. Odo Omnes Urgot did a ton of damage
11? What?
on the back half of that fight.
Sorry, I don't know how he
That
did it.
means one
11.
auto,
That's
maybe?
just a hilarious, like, 11?
I
Like,
tell you what, we'll have to see if the mechanics team can break down how Cassiopeia does 11 damage in that scenario.
yeah.
But I think crucially, this helps Schalke stall the game.
Yes, basically.
But they need a whole lot more if they want to regain control, because their team
Well-
composition has a lot of difficulty.
I mean, it's interesting. You're right. It's really difficult for Schalke to engage. But what they can do is look for things like this.
All right, so there we go. There's the engage. Paranoia will buy some time. Selfmade doesn't use the secondary proc. And I can confirm with the help of my stats and observer team, Abadage got 1 auto attack off. That is it. That is all he got to send out, was 1 little slither. Now Odo Wamne will be putting pressure onto this tower. Here comes Dreams. Waiting for the bone skewer, not going to fire it just yet. Disdain already used, and there is some pressure. Look at the minimap.
Ignat needs to use his ultimate now, but unfortunately he's too afraid to, because he thinks that depending on who he brings in, he could just get 2v1'd by the Yorick. So they don't end up using it, they don't find a collapse. It's actually Schalke that come out behind there because they end up losing the tower, and you can even see the Baron power play minus gold going in favor of SK.
Well, when you lose 3 immediate members, 2 towers, and a whole bunch of CS, it obviously is going to hurt you. The Elemental Drake will be spawning. This is the 5th of the game. Should be uncontested here by SK. And if you look at the itemization, tier build fully stacked for Crown Shot. He's got 4 completed items. Duskblade of Drakthar for Dreams as we're getting to 30 minutes. And Upset has now added the Hurricane to his Rage Blade and his IE. But it is still a 6,000 gold deficit. And we have just enough time for 1 more Elemental Drake before Elder. If you were SK, I think you would have hoped for that Elder. You could use that to speed up the game a little more.
For sure.
I always wonder if teams shouldn't try to delay 1 minute. You know, just try to get close to the threshold, so once you secure it, the next one is Elder.
I mean, true.
But it's not something we see a whole lot, so I'll save that discussion for another day.
So I think Schalke's in such a weird spot right now, because I'm trying to think of what can they do in the situation that they're in, because one option is you try and attack the sides, right? So you can maybe, when Yorick is pushing, like set up a gank. But the real problem is that Schalke has no towers yet. All of the outer towers for SK are alive, which means that SK have so much safety, and the risk of them getting flanked is very, very low. So Schalke basically are relying on SK to make mistakes. And all they need to do is wait for the next Baron to spawn, right? And they can just, okay, so this is one potential pick.
Well, let's see what Whirlip can do. He's going to be in a little bit of trouble. Disdain comes out. Whirlip decides to turn this around. Here comes Cloud Shot of Dreams. Whirlip does so much damage with the help of Selfmade. Schalke don't feel running for their lives. Memento stays alive just long enough, but Odo Wamne is now down. Selfmade goes very, very low. He is killed after being taken out. Depth from below comes out from Dreams. Goes Golden to heal up some HP. It ends up being a 1 for 2 in favor of SK.
And this is the thing, because SK still have a gold advantage, even though Schalke went for the pick there onto Yorick, you could see how much sustain and durability that he had, just flashing into the fight, saying, you know what, I'm prepared to take this. We have the Nocturne ultimate, we have 2 teleports, only Pyrian had to use it, which means that Memento was forced out of the fight immediately. Odoamne was left by himself on the backline, and Upset just couldn't deal with the fact that a Nocturne was diving onto his face. And again, in this situation, you think, okay, they've caught him out. The rest of SK aren't set up to punish us anywhere else on the map. This is a great situation for us, right? Ignat actually cancels the flank, and he doesn't actually come in from behind, I guess because he was worried about the Nocturne ultimate.
I thought Ignat got knocked backwards by the blast cone.
Oh,
Yep.
that might have happened as well.
I think Memento got knocked into the blue buff, and look at this Ignat
Oh my god!
with the Devour.
Oh my god!
Oh.
Memento! Again, that's the second crucial mistake of the game.
Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, fans of the LEC, I plead with you, be nice to Memento. This man is going to get wrecked by his teammates. We do not need to pile it on as well. There are some crucial mistakes, small moments that have gigantic impacts on the outcome of this game.
Yeah, good eyes there, quick shot. Glad you spotted that one out, but yeah, that was crucial. If upset coming in from the flank, maybe that could have swung the fight, but that Yorick W as well, just causing so much chaos. Now, Odoamne.
All right, Odoamne gets caught out, throws down the plate as well, survives long enough to flash to safety. And under the guise of paranoia, here comes Selfmade! Ignor forced to flash for his life. Fear beyond deck. That's one kill into Selfmade. Remember, his GA was popped in that last fight. Schalke, yes, you've got yourselves a kill, but you are still so far behind. 7,000 gold at this stage of the game.
So, quick shot, you know, people give North America a lot of criticism for being like, oh, they always have messy games. This is an example of an LEC messy game because it is mistakes constantly from both sides.
I have to ask, why did the NA need to come in for that
Because I just feel like they get a lot of criticism and be like, oh, all their games are low quality, right? But this is bad League of Legends right now. Both these teams are making huge mistakes. And Pyrian now, he's getting caught off on a side lane. Let's see what this devolves
All right, Pyrian runs for his life. Hourglass is still available to him, but there is no flash. Fear beyond death. Gobble, gobble, gobble. 9999. Odoamne 4-1. He is asking Schalke to get into his backpack, and he is trying to turn this around. Bone Skewer pulls Memento back into the ghouls. Teleport's being channeled. I think that's Upset has joined the fray, but there's enough SK members to push Schalke from Baron.
So the problem for Schalke is if they start the Baron, they run the risk of getting poked out by the Ezreal. There's also the risk of a Nocturne just ulting in and stealing it away, and you really don't want to fight that Yorick in the pit either. So Schalke, they should just focus on getting some of these outer towers down, get some gold back in their pockets, set the opportunity to find some flanks, but this should have been a clean game for SK. That Baron really was a small mistake where they skipped, like they just skipped a lot when they didn't need to. And it meant that Schalke could come back into the game, and now it's just picks on either side. SK are just struggling to know what to do next. And it's allowing Schalke's arguably experience here to come in and punish those very small mistakes.
Now for SK Gaming, as I mentioned earlier, they are in the lead. They are still in a good position to win this game out. And if they close this game out, they equal up their win-loss at 6-6. Take a look at their remaining games. They have both XL and Rogue left in their path, but the difficult task of playing G2 Esports. So for SK strength of schedule, 5 of their next 6 games are on the cards, and there's a couple of wins that you think they should be able to pick up.
You look at the performance of SK right now, right? And sure, their ability to close is definitely questionable, but XL, Splice, and Rogue should all be beatable teams from the perspective of SK. Those are ones that you would put SK as the favorites, whereas Schalke, you look at their opposition and you can't quite be as confident based on their recent play.
And I tell you what, if you are a Misfits or a Fnatic fan, you want SK Gaming to lose every single game on that list, because the more wins SK pick up, the further away from Misfits and Fnatic they get. Now, Schalke, they've got enough control to push out the mid lane. Look at the minimap. Top and bottom is pushing from SK to Schalke's base, and Schalke
so
is starting Baron.
This is the correct decision. You've got to force the Yorick to teleport to you, get him to come and fight you, because you've now got the items to win this fight.
Look how quickly Baron's going down. Whirlip hasn't even started the TP. He's coming in, but it might be too late. Paranoia into the pit. It's secure. That's stolen away. SK Gaming get the Baron, but at what cost? Dreams is already dead. Devoured by some time from Adage. Forced to flash over the wall. Petrifying Gaze did not do enough damage. Whirlip kills Ignor, and SK may have just enough to finish this game off.
And SK end up stealing the Baron away this time round. They find themselves 3 kills as well. And Schalke fall apart. This should be everything that SK need to finally end the game.
Abadage is running for his life. Here comes Crown Shot. Mystic Shot will not find its target. True Shot Barrage will be available in a moment or two. The inhibitor turret will fall. SK Gaming, after a slugfest in the late game, are now a few towers away from finishing this out. Abadage and Upset will have Memento to help them out in just a few seconds, but this is a difficult hold into Whirlip's Yorick.
Yeah, I don't know if they can hold this one off quick shot. Pyke has gone back to base, but there are still 4 members alive. SK are just slowly sieging onto these Nexus towers.
The Nexus turrets are falling. Upset gets caught inside the pit. Hypercharge will buy some time, but take a look at the back end. Memento goes down once more. Crown Shot's Ezreal is destroying Schalke no fear. As Schalke run for their lives, the Nexus is being focused, and SK Gaming are one step closer to playoffs.
chaotic game, but an important win for SK as they take down Schalke. It helps them close the gap between the teams sitting at the top of the leaderboard. And Schalke add another loss to their current underperformance in the second half of the split.
Since Broken Shard has joined SK Gaming, they have won 3 out of their last 4 games. And over the last 3 weeks, Schalke 04 have gone 2 wins and 4 losses. This is a gigantic win for SK. They even the head-to-head at 1 win apiece with Schalke, and now they are 1 game behind them. 1 win behind Schalke, who's in 3rd, 4th place right now.
And a lot of props to Werlib. I think that he had the stronger matchup with the Yorick. He punished a big mistake that Otto Omni made in lane, and he did not let go. He kept scaling and scaling, and ultimately the mistake came from SK's inability to know what to do, and they had that 1-3-1, right? We talked about how it's at that point in the game where they do make those mistakes. It did come through, but again, Schalke had no tools to turn the fact that they got a Baron back in their favor. They had no reliable engage tools. They had no ways to threaten or start these team fights. And so they ended up having to force the Baron. And then in the end, they all clumped up in the pit against the Lissandra. And the fact that the Nocturne was able to steal away the Baron as well. Pyke too, just executing everyone.
Yep. I am going to say something that is really mean, and I think I have to.
Okay.
Player of the game for SK has to be Memento. I think 2 gigantic blunders, 2 extremely visible blunders. Now, it's counterbalanced by a Baron steal as well, but at this level, with so much at stake in the playoffs race, those misplays with the Hourglass, with the Blast Cone, I mean, we've seen the Blast Cone playing Devil's Advocate many times, but it's hugely impactful deep into the spring splits.
Yeah, it's definitely going to hurt him as a player. He's going to eat himself up a lot because he's going to know that he's a large part of why those deficits came to be. If he could have just won that 2 versus 2, this is why they drafted it. They drafted the Casio Olaf to have the stronger 2 versus 2. That was the situation that they were waiting for, and then he ends up fumbling it. So definitely he's going to be frustrated with that one, but SK are going to be elated as Werlib, I feel like, had a great game.
And I think if you look at SK's performance overall, there's a few very clear mistakes, right? But for the most part, they played that comp and they played that game very well. So we do have some key player of the game nominations. Werlib, Selfmade, and Pyrian. Guys, head over to Twitter at LOL Esports and let us know who you think is going to win today. Please let it be Werlib. Don't get me wrong, I love Selfmade. The dude is a beast. But he's won too many of these players of the games, and I think today it's on Werlib's shoulders.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think he had a great Yorick performance. My only criticism is when he came to do the Baron, but outside from that, flawless Yorick.
I actually need to find out from our production team whether we're even allowed to influence the vote. Like, I actually think that's cheating.
Doesn't matter. We've been doing it for weeks, Quick Shot. They can't stop us now.
It's a bit late, so we're going to have to find out. We're going to head on stage where Dracos is standing by with a man that I hope doesn't win player of the game.
Cutting Selfmade short, the man who stole the Baron in the end. I do want to get your take on the back half of this game. Memento stole a Baron from you. You stole a Baron back from him. How did that feel? What was going through your head through both of those exchanges?
Well, both Barons were basically 50-50, so it was pure RNG who gonna take it.
At the end of the day, though, you, it feels like, got the one that mattered, and you, the team itself really built up a big lead in the early game, so I'm curious, how is that early game playing out in your guys' mind? Were you guys confident you were going to keep building up these leads? Was there anything you were worried about? Because you seemed in the driver's seat from minute 1.
I think our gameplay was just get level 6 on mid lane and jungle, obviously, and then look for opening play. And since we got that in mid lane, we decided to take Herald and get it for Playtix in top lane. And after first tower for down in top lane, we could just play for Ezreal, and we just got a big lead.
Definitely did, and obviously there's some highlight plays coming in behind you, what you and the team were able to accomplish. Once again, Baron stolen away, not ideal, but I'm curious, you guys picked up the Yorick. This is a pick that we're seeing rise in priority more and more, and it looks like a powerhouse, obviously, in the hands of your top laner. How do you feel about this pick right now? Is this something that more teams should be looking to take away from a guy like Werlib up top?
I'm not top laner, so I can't really answer this, you know, but from my point of view, I think it's really strong. It's like a new Fiora, but more tanky, I would say.
Definitely looked incredibly strong. As a final question for you, SK just keeps finding these wins. You keep taking down teams that were kind of expected to be top teams, so I'm curious where you see yourself right now in terms of the league standing. Are you a team that can contest the top 2? Are you a team that can for sure lock in one of these playoff spots? How do you see it?
To be fair, I think top 4 is what we are looking for right now. For sure playoffs, but how we will finish, we will see. Let's hope for the best.
All right, calm, patient, not going to promise us too much, but top four seems like an excellent goal thus far. That's going to do it for us here. When we come back, our third match of the day. Don't go anywhere.
Now, Abadagi will be a little bit of pressure.
Wait.
Whoa, Memento!